Resourceful Designer, episode 152, Designing for Family and Friends.
Welcome to the Resourceful Designer podcast, offering solutions to streamline your graphic and web design business so you can get back to designing. And now your host. He shoots left hand in hockey, but right hand in golf. Mark Decote.
Welcome to the show. I'm grateful that you've decided to tune in and listen to what I have to say about running a graphic design business. In this week's episode, I'm going to share how I handle things when I have to work with family or friends. I'm also going to share a resource of the week that you're probably already familiar with, but are you using it to its full potential? Before ending the episode with Kayla's question about charging for printed work. Now, I've had a pretty fun week this week so far. I got to create a new logo and some stationery for a new client, so that was fun. As well as I finished off that illustration I told you about last episode for that podcast artwork. Personally, I hate the way it turned out, but the client was really pleased with it. So, to each his own. And in between all of that, I've been working on a personal project of my own. Now, I've given myself a deadline to have my project done by the end of the month. So I'm treating it as if it's a regular client job and including it in my work schedule, like a normal project. And that's really been helping me to keep on track and make sure that I get it done for the deadline I set for myself. So I've been enjoying that as well. And I must say, as far as clients go, I'm a pretty good one to work with. So those are a few of the things I've been up to this week. I've also been inquiring in the Resourceful Designer Facebook group about the podcast and just finding out what people like and don't like and what they'd like me to change about the podcast. Now, if you're not already a member of the Resourceful Designer Facebook group, first of all, you really should be. And you can get to it by visiting resourcefuldesigner.com/group and make sure you answer my 3 questions that I put out there. If you don't answer the questions, I will not let you into the group. If you're not part of the Facebook group and you would like to help me out with this, can you please send me an email at feedback@resourcefuldesigner.com and answer these 3 questions. 1, is there anything about the podcast that annoys you and you would like me to change? 2, is there anything that I'm not currently doing with the podcast that you would like to see me try? And finally, 3, what parts of the podcast do you not want me to change at all? So that's it. I asked this in the group and I got some great responses there, but if you would like to let me know, just send an email to feedback@resourcefuldesigner.com and answer those 3 questions. And now, this week's resource of the week. And this week's resource, as I mentioned earlier, is one you're probably familiar with, and that's Facebook groups. I was just talking about the Resourceful Designer group, and I think it's invaluable. The communication, the conversations, the questions that get asked in there, and the answers provided are just great for anybody who is running a graphic design business. But there's a lot of questions that don't apply to the Resourceful Designer group. And that's why I think you should be part of many different groups on Facebook. And sometimes it's a hit and miss to find the right groups for you, but there are groups for just about anything you can think of. And it makes it really easy to get answers for stuff. I belong to a couple of Divi groups. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know that I'm a big fan of Divi. All my WordPress websites that I design are all designed using the Divi theme from Elegant Themes. And a little plug here, if you are interested in it, you can visit resourcefuldesigner.com/Divi. That is my affiliate link. And if you sign up, that link does give you 10% off your purchase. But lately, I've had some questions. I had some issues or some things I wanted to try, and I wasn't quite sure how to do them. And even though I love the support forum on Elegant Themes, it is just so much easier to go into one of the Divi groups, pose a question, and get lots of great answers in there. Now, there's also some great business-related groups that I belong to, that if there's any business-related questions that don't really have to do with design or design business, but just business in general, I can pose them in there. And even with design, I had an issue with a logo. I mentioned that I was designing a logo, or that's one of the things I did this week was design a logo for a new client. Well, I had an issue with the logo, and instead of posting in a Resourceful Designer that's more about the business side, I went directly to the Logo Geek Facebook group. And if you're not familiar with that one's done by Ian Paget, and Logo Geek is a wonderful community that's devoted only to logo designers. So everything, all the discussions in that group have to do with logo design. So I had a logo design question. That's where I went to post it, and I got some great answers there as well. So I know some people, they just live in various Facebook groups, but a lot of people join groups and then never visit them. But there is a lot of value in these things that provide the answers you need for a specific topic, whether it's a specific group for a theme, whether it's for a software. I belong to some Photoshop groups. I belong to Quark Express groups. I belong to Adobe Illustrator groups. Anytime there's a question about a specific software, there's a group for you. There are groups for web designers. There's a group for print designers. There's a group for printers. There's all sorts of groups you can belong to. So have a look through Facebook. Just do a search. And it will be trial and error, just like there's lots and lots of different graphic design groups, some of them good, some of them bad, or at least in my opinion. But when you find the right group, it makes a world of difference for you and your business because it helps you speed up your process of getting answers and finding solutions. So that's this week's Resource of the Week, is simply Facebook groups. And now, designing for family and friends. Now, this topic came to me from the Facebook group as well, the Resourceful Designer Facebook group, when Madupe, she asked if I had ever done an episode specifically on dealing with family and friends or designing or working with family and friends. And I have talked about this a little bit in the past, but I've never done a whole episode. So I added it onto my list of future episodes to do. But then as I was contemplating this week's episode, that topic kept nagging me and picking at the back of my brain. And I said, you know what? I'm going to move that one forward because I'm sure a lot of people have this issue. And that's what to do when family or friends come to you and say, hey, you're a designer. Can you do this for me? So thank you very much for the suggestion, Madupe. And she even made a joke in the Facebook group that maybe the best thing is to have a no friends or family policy. Don't work for them at all. But this is actually a topic that I'm surprised I didn't have it on my list already, because I've seen this question come up many times. What do you do with family and friends? Family or friends want to take advantage of you. They expect you to work for free. They're so hard to deal with. They want you to bend backward for them. They get insulted if you want to charge them. And so many different things in so many different groups. And this is not just for design. I've seen this in business groups and all sorts of other places. Just that working with family and friends can be a headache. And in a lot of these places, the general consensus is don't work with family or friends. But I disagree. If you go back a couple of episodes ago, episode 149 of the Resourceful Designer podcast, in that episode, I talked about starting a design business from scratch. My steps, what I would do if right now, today, I had to start a design business and I didn't have my contacts, my clients, my reputation, and all that behind me. If I was starting from scratch, what would I do? Well, my number 2 on the list, after building a website, was reach out to family and friends. And that doesn't just include letting them know. I said in that episode, let them know you're starting a business. But that's not just to let them know so they can ask other people. You are starting a business. You need to get work. And what better people to help spread the word than family and friends? And family or friends are usually the first people that will actually bring you work, not through referrals or that, but some of them might be the very first people to actually bring you a job. Because as far as taking a chance, especially if you're new, for someone to take a chance on hiring you, family or friends are your best bet because they know you best. Now, with that said, if you are going to work with family or friends, you need to do it right and get some ground rules set from the get-go. Now, please keep in mind that what I'm sharing with you now is what works for me, what I've developed over the years of running my business, how I deal with working with family and friends. This might not work for you. A lot of factors play into this. Your personality, who your family and friends are, your timetable, and there's so many different things that can play into it. So what I'm sharing is my strategy, how I go about it, and hopefully I can help you. You can incorporate some of this into your life. But I want you to keep in mind that this might not apply to you, or some of it at least, because each one of us is different. So first and foremost, anytime that I'm working with either a family member or somebody that's a friend, I state the terms up front. And what I mean by that is the following. If they are coming to me because they want design for a business they have, whether they're starting a business, they have an existing business, if the work is going to be for a business, then I treat them like a business client, no different than any other client I have. This is a business dealing. I give them proposals, I get them to sign contracts, I send them invoices, and the whole bit. Family or friends should not be exempt from good business practice. Now, when things get tricky is when it's more of a personal project. And that you really have to be the judge on what you are willing and what you are not willing to do. And I want you to remember that it is okay to say no. I talked about that back in episode 42 of the podcast. It's okay to say no to design work. If you don't want to work with your brother, or you don't want to work with your cousin, or you don't want to do work for your best friend, it's okay to say no. Now, you could go so far as to say, I would prefer not do this for you, and maybe refer some other people, another designer that they can go to. But you don't have to give an excuse. It's okay to say no. But the big difference for me is, again, whether or not it's for business or it's for personal stuff. Now, in my particular case, anytime I do any work for family or friends and it's a business, as I said, I will treat them like a business. I will give them a proposal. I will make them sign a contract. I will send them an invoice. The only difference is I offer a 30% discount to family and friends. Again, when it applies to a business. And I want to state that 30% discount is for my services. So in a case like my brother-in-law, who I do all his work for him, including getting stuff printed and all that, he gets a 30% discount on my design services, but he pays full price for the printing as well as the website hosting. So I don't give him discounts on that stuff. If it's an expense for me, they pay full price. But on my services, I give them 30% off because it's a business. Now, there has been some cases where I've offered to do stuff for free. I mentioned last week that I'm working on a website for my son. He's starting a business with a couple of friends, and I offered to do that stuff for free. I did the logo for free. I did the website for free. But as I said, this is a business my son is starting. I still sent them a proposal. I told them I would do it for free, but I proposed, this is what I'm offering. I sent them a proposal. I got them to sign a contract because, first of all, this is my son's first business. They're all just finishing. My son just graduated from university and his two friends are in their final semester of university. So I want them to know what it's like to work with businesses. So I sent them a contract, even though I'm doing this for free. I sent them a contract and I insisted they sign the contract. I had all the terms just like they were a regular client. The only difference is in the section where I talk about payment, I mentioned that I'm doing this for free. And when I finished the logo design, I sent them an invoice with the price that I would have charged them if they were a regular client. And then I applied a 100% discount to the invoice. Because again, I want them to know the value that they are getting. They're not paying me anything for this. I offered to do it, but I want them to know what they're getting out of me. This is not just, oh, Ryan's dad's a designer and he can do this, no problem. No, I want them to know that I gave them the logo. This is how much that logo would have cost if they had hired me as a regular designer and not as Ryan's dad. The same thing with my brother. Who's now passed away, but he came to me. My brother had written a couple of books, and these were all books on spiritual meditation that he had written. Well, he had three books published, and then he wanted to do this final book self-published. The other three, he had used a publisher, but something had happened. The publisher, I think, had closed down, actually. They had gone out of business. So instead of finding a new publisher, he decided to self-publish his last book. And he came to me and asked if I could lay out the book, design a cover so that it would match the first three, because the first three all had a similar look, and he wanted the fourth book to look similar. So again, I did the same thing. This is my brother. I did the job for free, but I still gave him a contract because in the contract it stated that the work I did would transfer to him upon payment. And of course, there's no payment, but I still had him sign a contract, and I sent him an invoice for how much I would have charged with 100% discount. And not to say, okay, hey, bro, this is how much you're getting out of me, the favors and all that. No, it was just, that's the way I work. When I'm working with family or with friends and I do something, I will give them the total amount minus the discount. So whether it's a 30% discount or a 100% discount, I want them to know the value of what they're getting from me. And sometimes when you're working with somebody, these jobs can mix and match. For example, I've got a really, really good friend of mine that we've been, if you want to use the term best friends, we've been best friends since high school, and we still see each other on a regular basis. Well, he has a business, and when he started the business, he said there was nobody else he wanted to work with except for me. So again, 30% discount on the business. This is a guy that I'm closer to him than I am to my brothers. He's the type of guy that if I received a phone call from him at 4 o'clock in the morning saying, Mark, I need your help, I wouldn't even ask what's up. I'd be getting dressed and I'm saying, I'm on my way. Where do you need me? That kind of guy. But it doesn't matter how close. This is business. For his business, same deal, 30% discount. However, whenever he comes to me with a personal project, I will gladly do it, no charge to him. Now, in some cases, depending what it is, I won't go so far as to do the whole proposal and contract, depending on what the project was. For example, a year or so ago, his father passed away, and just a week before, they had a family gathering with hundreds of people, and they had somebody take a photo of the gathering. And it was the last picture taken of his father and the entire family. And it just so happened that my friend's son is one of those kids that can never be serious in front of a camera. So he was making a really goofy face. My friend and his wife were really upset because they wanted to frame this photo and put it up in their living room. So he asked me if there's anything I could do. So I had him give me some other photos of his son where he wasn't making a goofy face. And in Photoshop, I went in and changed the face so that he was smiling and it suited everything else. And now it's mounted in their living room and they love it. Well, that's the sort of thing. That's a personal project. So I did that one for free. No problem. I have another friend that, just like this other one I told you about, his name was Scott. Well, this other friend, Rob, the three of us, we're the three musketeers, we say. Started friendship back in high school. Actually, they were friends long before that. I met them during high school. But the three of us are the ones that hang out. We go on vacation, like just guys. We'll go camping together and all sorts of stuff. Well, when Rob got married, he asked me if I would design his wedding invitation and all the stuff, the tent cards for the tables, the place settings, the posters, the RSVP cards, the whole bit. He wanted me to design all that stuff. In that case, what I did is I decided I would do this for free, but I told him this would be my wedding gift to him. And I had it all printed. Of course, I have discounts at printers, so I was able to get a discount at the printer and all that. But regardless of that fact, I had it all printed and I didn't charge him a cent. So in that case, it's almost like a case of bartering. I guess maybe not so much, but that's a case where a friend, I offered him this stuff for free, but in exchange, I didn't have to go out and buy him another wedding gift. This was my wife and I, this was our wedding gift to him, was I did all the design and printing for the wedding. And they were very grateful for that. So sometimes you can work in some sort of, I don't know if you want to call that a deal or an arrangement, but there's always ways to do it. So that's kind of my strategy for working with family or friends. If it's a business, I treat them like a normal client. The only difference is I give them a 30% discount. And I tell them that from the get-go. I says, this is how it works. If they decide they want to find somebody cheaper or go somewhere else, so be it. No hard feelings. I work at my rate minus a 30% discount, and everything else I treat you like a regular client. You get no special favors or leniency. Everything is worked as a regular client. If it's a personal project and I decide to take it on, then depending on what it is, I may or may not get a contract. And again, I may or may not send an invoice just to show them what the value. Like when I did that photo for the friend, I didn't bother sending him an invoice for what that cost. I just did it for him. But as another example, this same friend that I did the wedding invitations for, he also asked me at one time if I would design a t-shirt for his son's hockey team. And in that case, I treated that as if it was a business because this wasn't a personal favor. It wasn't something done for my friend. It was something done for the team that my friend's son belongs to. And it wasn't just my friend that would benefit. It was the entire team that would benefit from it. And I don't know anybody else on that team. So to me, I treated that as a business and I offered to do the design for him. And I told him in that case, I gave him a proposal. I said, here's what I propose. You take this back to the team. If they want to, I will do it. And because it's you and you're asking me, I will give it a 30% discount in this case. But otherwise, This is a regular job for a regular client. And they were good with that. I did design the t-shirt for them. Now, one thing I want to state here is the definition of family and friends. In my case, when I say family, I'm talking about immediate family. I'm talking about my brothers. I'm talking about my nieces and nephews. I'm not very close with my cousins. I know some people are very, very close, but I have lots of cousins. I'm just not very close with them. In fact, it's probably been years since I've actually been in communication with any of my cousins. So for that fact, if one of my cousins came to me and asked me something, I would treat them as a regular client. I don't even think I'd offer them a discount. I guess it would depend what the project was, but if a cousin came to me, I would treat them like any other client I have. The same thing with acquaintances. I will give a discount to my close friends, but just because I know somebody doesn't mean they merit a discount. Somebody that I went to high school with years ago that I haven't really talked to, or somebody that I run into maybe downtown every once in a while and we stop and we talk for a bit. Even people that I was really, really good friends with. For example, it's going to be 25 years this year that we were married, and I've lost touch with my best man. We still run into each other every once in a while, but we've grown apart. He has a different life and I have a different life. And the things that united us back then, we just don't have the same thing in common anymore. So we've lost touch over the years. So even though I still talk to him whenever I see him and we say, oh, it was nice. It was all reminiscing on old times. If he came to me, I don't see any reason to offer him a discount because he's not a close friend anymore. I would consider him now an acquaintance, just like everybody else. And you have to set those sort of boundaries because at some point, somebody is going to come to you and it's going to be somebody you know. And just because you know them, even if they ask, like, yeah, we know each other, are you going to give me a good deal? I mean, there's nothing wrong with saying, oh, sure, I'll give you a great deal. And then charge them the same you would with any other client because you can tell them, I honestly think I give a good deal to all my clients. So in my situation, it's close friends and close family only. Now, I will share a situation here. My brother-in-law that I've talked about on the podcast before, I do a lot of work for him and his business. Well, I was also doing work for his wife. His wife she owns a day spa where they do manicures and hair and massage and all that stuff. And I offered her the same thing. She was, my brother-in-law's wife. I was offering his wife the same 30% discount. But then they got divorced. And it wasn't really an amicable divorce. So here I was still designing for both him and her, but the two of them weren't speaking anymore. And not that that made a difference. I was dealing with each one individually. But now I got to the point where, okay, they got divorced. She's no longer my sister-in-law. Do I keep offering her a discount? And at that point, I didn't. When it came time to send her an invoice, I just sent her an invoice. I didn't tell her I was going to remove the discount. I don't even know if she knew I was offering her a discount. It's just all the invoices had 30% off. And when the next job came in, I sent her an invoice that didn't have a 30% off on it. I never told her anything and she never said anything. And we kept working for actually a couple of years after that. We kept working. And then for some reason, she ended up switching. I don't know why. She ended up contacting me and just letting me know that she wouldn't be using my services anymore. But there was no questions asked whenever I eliminated that discount because she was no longer a family. Now, a couple of more points I want to make is another great thing to do if you are working with family or friends is bartering. And I did talk about bartering your graphic design services back in episode 47 of the podcast. If you want to listen to that one, visit resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 47. But bartering is a great thing to do. My desk that I work at here was bartering with somebody. He needed a website for his woodworking business, so I offered to design a website for free. He agreed to pay for hosting and domain, and in exchange, he built my desk for free. I agreed to pay for the wood and the hardware. So that was another great way to do something for a friend that didn't involve the going back and forth money or any of that stuff. It was just bartering. So you can listen to that episode if you want to know more about bartering, but that is another great thing to do with friends. So far I've been talking about working with friends or the dealing that you do. But one of the concerns that Madupe had in the question that she posed when she asked me if I had ever done an episode like this was the dealing during the project, timeline expectations, phone calls about the projects, talking during family time and going on and on. And again, I said at the start that you have to set ground rules up front. And I do this for everybody. I did this with my brother. I did this with my son. I've done this with my friends. I did this with my brother-in-law. And that is to let them know that when I am designing something, we are in a business relationship. Whether I am doing it for free or a discount, even a personal project, I still consider that a business association. So even if it's a personal project that I'm doing for free, I expect the communication to be business-wise. And I set the ground rules up front. I have a business phone number. Yes, friends and family know my home phone number. But if you're calling me about business, you're to call me on my business number. If you're calling me about business, you are to talk to me between 9 and 5. I do not do business outside those times. If we get together, either on a weekend or at some family gathering or whatever, yes, we can bring it up a little bit, but we are not there for a business meeting. So I don't want to go in depth, especially if I'm there with my wife or my family and their family. The last thing we want to do is get into this huge conversation about this sort of project. If it comes up during one of those times and somebody says, can we do some work together now? I'll say, yeah, sure, but let's not talk about it now. You contact me during my business hours and we'll discuss it. And I do the same for family or friends. When my brother asked me to do the book, he asked me during a time when we were together, and I says, yeah, I'd love to help you with that. Let's sit down at one point during business time and we'll discuss it. So you got to set those ground rules. And that pertains to phone calls. It involves proofs. Like if you limit revisions, treat them like a regular client. And if you would not let a regular client get away with something, there's no reason to let family or friends get away with something. And the thing is if they do, if they try to push this and they say, oh, well, come on, we're family, or, we're friends, like, just give me a break or whatever, you can always let them know that this isn't working out. If we can't do this like a business relationship, then I think we better off not doing this altogether. And you can say it's for the benefit of our friendship or our relationship for family. And in some cases, for some people, you might want to say that from the get-go. That no, I don't want to work with you, or I don't want to take on a project of yours because I'm afraid it might hurt our relationship if something goes sour with it. And they might say, oh, that's never going to happen, but you might feel like it will. So again, it's okay to say no to that design work. It's all about respect. You can tell them that, I respect you too much and I've had some falling outs or I've had some bad dealings with clients and I don't want to feel that way with you just in case. I don't know how things are going to go, but I just don't want to take the chance. Because you can always tell somebody that if you don't want to work with them, you can always say, well, I'm too busy right now, or I don't have the time. But if you do that, you're just leaving it open for them to come back in a few weeks and say, well, do you have the time now? Or don't worry, I'll wait. Here's all the information for the project. Whenever you do have time, start working on it. So you don't want to say that sort of thing to a family or friend. Basically, you should just tell them that if you're not comfortable working with them, let them know from the get-go. But as far as everything else, phone calls, timeline or deadlines, treat them like any other client and ask them to respect you. Tell them this is what you do for a living. This is how you work, and you expect them to respect that process. And if they're not willing to, then end it just like you would end it with any other client. I can tell you that working with family and friends can be taxing. It can be trying at times, but it can also be very, very rewarding. The website and logo that I designed for my son and his friends, it's giving me more exposure to people that don't know about me because my son doesn't live in this area. He lives in Ottawa, Ontario, where I don't have a big foothold in Ottawa. I've got a few clients, but not a lot. Well, it gives me one more. When people, they're getting this business off the ground, when people ask him about the stuff and he says, well, my father designed it. If the people like that, they can get a hold of me. So it's an opportunity for me. Same thing with friends. That one good friend that I talked about earlier, his business, because of that, I've gotten business from him. I've worked and he knows me. We've known each other since high school. And I've gotten so much referral work from him because of that. I don't think he would even dream of sending anybody anywhere else but to me. So in those aspects, designing and working with family and friends can prove to be invaluable to the growth of your business and to the future of your business. Because who better to spread the word about your design business than the people who know you best, the people who love you, your family and your friends. And one more thing before I go. I've talked about dealings and how you go about doing stuff with family and friends, or how I go about doing this. But there's one thing that trumps all of this. Your mom. If your mom comes to you with a project, doesn't matter if it's for her business, for personal, it doesn't matter what it is. You do that for your mom. She put up enough with all your nonsense while you were growing up. It's the least you can do. So moms always get an exception. At least I know mine did. I would love to know what you thought of my take on working with family and friends. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? I want to know. Please visit resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 152 and leave a comment for the episode. Let me know. Do you agree? Do you have a similar policy? Do you have something different you do when it comes to family and friends? Leave a comment, and then people visiting the post in the future will be able to read it. And now, this week's question of the week. This week's question comes in from Kayla. She says, in past episodes, I remember you saying that you upcharge print materials. Example, if you've designed a brochure and the client wants 500 more of the exact same brochure, you simply send it to the printer again. But how do you suggest upcharging? A flat rate or a percentage? Now, thank you very much for the question, Kayla. Now, I did cover print brokering back in episode 49 of the podcast, which was entitled Print Brokering to Supplement Your Graphic Design Business. And you can get to that by visiting resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 49. But to give you a brief rundown of what I do, local printers, I've contacted my local printers and I've made an arrangement to have a 15% discount from them. So what I mean by that is anytime I do brokering for a client, so say in a case where I have a brochure, like you said, 500 brochures, I would get a quote from the printer. How much is 500 brochures? Then I can take that exact quote and show my client, here is the printer, here is their quote, this is how much you're paying. But the client is paying me. They're not paying the printer. So they pay me that fee. Then when the job is done and the printer then invoices me for the job, they apply a 15% discount to my invoice. So the client will pay me the full amount, and then I pay the printer the amount minus the 15% that I keep as my upcharge, if you will. It's not really an upcharge. It would be kind of my commission for the job. So anytime I'm dealing with a local printer, and I have the same deal with commercial printers, I have the same deal with some sign shops in town, I have the same deal with a screen printer in town. And these are all things back when I started my business. I approached them and I said, listen, first of all, I asked if they had a wholesale pricing. That's usually what you call it. And most of these places did not have wholesale pricing. So I offered, I says, here's the deal I would like. I have potential to bring you business. Would you offer me a 15% discount? And that way I can tell my clients, like, I don't want to upcharge my client. I don't want the printer to charge me $100 or say the brochure is going to cost $100. And then I go to my client and say the brochure is going to cost $120. And then my client decide, well, I'm going to get a price from the printer. And they find out from the printer that it's only $100. Well, why are they going to deal with me? They'll go directly to the printer. So that's why I set up this deal to begin with. And it's worked. I've been doing this since I started my business. And I make a lot on that. Anytime I get anything printed locally, whether it's brochures or posters or business cards, everything is done through me. And what I tell the client, my client, it makes it easier for them because they're only dealing with one person. If you're dealing with me to design your business cards, some posters, maybe some trade show booths, maybe the tablecloth that'll go across your table, you deal with me and you pay me. Then I farm all this stuff out. I can handle all of this. I'm used to dealing with a printer where you're not. I know what sort of questions to ask them. I know what sort of things to expect. So that's the way I deal with that. Now, that is dealing with local printers. The other thing is trade printers. And I have a few trade printers. And what a trade printer is a printer that only prints for other printers or people in the design space. They do not print directly for the end customer. So if one of my clients was to contact them, they would say, sorry, we don't print for restaurants or medical clinics or all this stuff. We only print for people in the industry. And that's what a trade printer is. So I have arrangements with various trade printers. And what usually happens is a trade printer has better prices than a normal printer. So in those cases, I will just mark up the price. And depending on the printer, that could be anywhere from 10% to about 30%. And again, it all depends on the job. If it's like 500 business cards, I might mark it up 30%. But if we're talking about 50,000 posters, I might only mark it up 10%. And as for how much, if I'm print brokering a job and the printing cost is $50, then adding 30% on that and charging the client $65 isn't that bad. But if we're looking at a printing job that's $10,000, I might only upcharge it 5% or maybe 10%, depending on the job, and make a $500 or $1,000 commission. Yeah, actually, in that case, I might actually just do a 5%. So I just play, it depends on the size of the job, and then I just arbitrarily pick an amount that I'm comfortable charging to the client. That would still mean that I make a commission, but I'm not really gouging the client and trying to make a huge profit off of them. But I have had print jobs where I've made several $1,000s commission. And finally, if you are using just one of these online printers that they're popping up all over the place, a lot of them will have wholesale pricing if you are in the industry. You have to prove you are in the industry, but I know several of them, they'll have a regular price, and then if you can sign in and prove that you are a reseller, they will give you a discount on their prices. And in those cases, I do the same thing. I'll look to see what their regular price would be, and then I'll check to see what the discounted price for resellers is. And that's the price that I pay. And then the non-discounted price is what I would charge my clients. So that's the way I deal with it, Kayla. And even if it's a reprint, if it's something I've made a print profit before because a commission from a previous time, and they call back and they say, I want another 500. Well, I just do the exact same thing and I would get the exact same commission the second time around. And that's easy money. I do that lots of times. In fact, I had a client this week that needed a reorder of business cards. They ran out of business cards. They just called me up. And this is, Mark, I'm out of business cards. Can you get me another order? I said, sure. I contacted the printer who already had the files. I just said, can you please run another 500 of those cards? And I'm going to make a small commission on that order. And that's all I did. I received a phone call and I made a phone call. So anyways, I hope that answers your question. Print brokering is a great way. It has brought me a lot of extra income over the years. I started from day one, and I highly suggest if you do any sort of print design that you look into print brokering. And if you want to know more, as I said, I talked all about this back in episode 49 of the podcast. So have a look at there. So that's it for this episode. I had a lot of fun. Thank you very much, Madupe, for this topic. I enjoyed talking about it. And if you enjoyed the episode and you think that you might have some friends or family that are designers that might enjoy it as well, and all the other topics I've talked about, please let them know about the podcast. Tell them that it can be found anywhere that they listen to podcasts, including on Spotify. And if they're not sure about podcasts, they don't know how to subscribe and all that, ask them if they know how to download an app and tell them to search for the Resourceful Designer app. It's available for both Android and Apple devices. And once they download the app, they open it up and all the episodes are available to them right there. So that's it for this week's episode. Thank you once again for tuning in and listening. I do appreciate it. And I look forward to discussing something different about running our graphic design business next week. Until then, I am Mark Decote, wishing you all the best with your design business, and as always, reminding you to stay creative.
Thanks for listening to the Resourceful Designer Podcast at resourcefuldesigner.com.